All right, guys, welcome to Grammar Tuesday. Today we are going to be talking about punctuation. How do we know you need this? Because we just got done grading all of those tests and you aren't using proper punctuation. So, yes, you may have learned this before, but we're going to go over it again. So, on Canvas, if you scroll down underneath our lesson here, you will see a button, and what we want you to do is take some follow along notes. They do go pretty much in order, so fill out whatever notes you feel you need to. So let's get started. So, grammar time. So let's figure out how to end sentences. Well, first off, what is an end mark? An end mark is also known as punctuation, and it comes at the end of a sentence. It lets you know when to stop. Because if there's no punctuation, we think you're continuing on with your thought and on and on and on and on and on. That is why end marks are so important. Now, there are different kinds of end marks. As I'm sure you know, this blue dot right here is a period. It comes at the end of statements and commands. So for example, it is raining today, period. It needs that period at the end of the sentence. That's how we know you're done speaking. Do not interrupt me. Again, we need a period at the end of the sentence. We also have the question mark. Now, question marks they indicate that something is being asked. When you read a question, you read it differently than you do when you have a normal period at the end. So for example, are you going to lunch? Question mark. Without that question mark, we think you're still continuing on with your sentence, or sometimes we don't even know it's a question. You gotta put that punctuation mark at the end. We also have the exclamation mark, and an exclamation mark shows feeling or excitement. So for example, that is a huge dog! Exclamation mark. Now, we don't just use periods at the end of sentences. Sometimes we use them to abbreviate things. So for example, 1290 College Road. For some reason, somebody thought it would be easier to just put RD period rather than write out the entire word. But the period shows that this word is abbreviated. J.K. Rowling, she doesn't go by her full name, just J.K. So therefore, to separate the J and K and show that there's more to her name, you have to put periods. Also, Miss White shows that that is her title. And Dr. Watson, again, we don't write out doctor, we just put DR period. So let's pretend we run into this sentence. Where are we going? Do we need an exclamation mark, a question mark, or a period? Well, let's click on question mark. Perfect. So in this sentence, we would need a question mark at the end because it is a question. All right, let's say we run into this one. The phone is ringing. Now, depending on the situation, you could use an exclamation mark or a period. So let's be adventurous and let's say we're going to put an exclamation mark. Nope, not right. So the phone is ringing. We're not shouting it, obviously, because if we were, we would need the exclamation mark. Instead, let's click period. All right, so the phone is ringing. It's just a statement. All right, what about this one? That car is going to crash. Well, this is probably something that's going to surprise you. So let's say it's an exclamation. Perfect. So this shows excitement. All right. Now, we know that those are not the only end marks. Like we said, end marks show you when it's time to stop. But those aren't the only punctuation members of the family. So let's talk about a couple more. Now, a colon is made with two periods. They look like this, right? Stacked on top of each other. Now, you use these when you tell time or when you display time. So for example, 11:35 p.m. Notice the colon separates 11 and 35. But it also comes before a list. This is the one where a lot of kids don't know. Colons indicate that a list is coming. This is everything I need from the grocery store, colon, and then my list. So for example, Chuck Norris will need the following items from the store, colon, bananas, grapes, watermelon, and lemons. And that is a picture of Chuck Norris. The comma, now commas have a lot of rules, and we're only going to touch on some of the major ones, but over the year we will be going more in depth into commas. So a comma looks like this. It goes at the bottom of the line, not of course to be confused with an apostrophe that goes at the top. So the comma is sometimes used to separate a list. So for example, Chuck Norris owns a tiger, a crocodile, and a T-Rex. Because he definitely does. But notice how tiger, crocodile, and the word and are all separated by commas. All right, the comma also is used between the date and the year. So for example, Chuck Norris was born on March 10th, comma, 1940. Cute little kid, obviously. The comma is also used with a conjunction to combine two independent clauses or two independent sentences. So for example, Chuck Norris once kicked a horse in the chin, comma, and today its descendants are now known as giraffes. So, Chuck Norris once kicked a horse in the chin. That is a complete sentence, right? Today its descendants are known as giraffes. That is also a complete sentence. We combine them together with the comma and a fanboy, which we'll learn more about fanboys coming up. But that is how you connect two independent sentences. The comma is also used to indicate dialogue or the comments of a character. So for example, my tears cure cancer, comma, declared Chuck Norris. Miss Simmons calmly replied, "Too bad you never cry." The comma is used in many other ways, but like I said, we'll look at those later. Now, quotation marks. They look like this. This lets you know that somebody is talking, either a character in a story or something. It indicates that this is what somebody said. So for example, "Hey Chuck, why do you always wear sunglasses?" asked Mr. Bainey. As you can see, this is what Mr. Bainey said, and we ask Mr. Bainey out because obviously Mr. Bainey isn't going to say Mr. Bainey, right? Okay. "Because," Chuck Norris responded, "I don't want my eyes to hurt the sun." All right, also with quotation marks, they are used to indicate titles of short text like short stories, poems, articles in a magazine. You probably learned in elementary school that you underline book names, but when it comes to poems, songs, and short works like plays, you put them in quotation marks. So for example, "The Raven" by Edgar Allan Poe is a very famous poem. Or "The Monkey's Paw" is a scary short story. All right, semicolon joins two independent but closely related clauses or sentences. Now, the easiest way to do this is with a comma and a fanboys, but we haven't learned about that yet. So instead, you would just put a semicolon, which has a period on dot and a comma on the bottom. Kind of looks, well, it's the winking face. When you make a winky face to your crush when you text them, it's the eyes of the winking face. So for example, "Chuck Norris once went to Mars, semicolon. That is why scientists can find no signs of life there." And there's, of course, Chuck Norris kicking Mars. "Chuck Norris doesn't dial the wrong number, semicolon. You answer the wrong phone." Moving on, we then have the apostrophe. Now the apostrophe looks just like the comma, except this comes above the word. The comma comes below the word or on the line, where the apostrophe goes above the word. So you use an apostrophe to show possession. So for example, Chuck Norris compelled Superman to wear Batman's kryptonite batsuit for Halloween. And that shows he's dead. An apostrophe also is used to combine two words into a contraction. So for example, Chuck Norris doesn't, wouldn't, and couldn't cry. All right, and that's all there is to it. Start using those in your work. So again, if we go to Canvas, hopefully you've done your follow along notes. But if you go to the bottom here and hit next, it will take you to this page. Now, if you click this button, what we want you to do here is go through this worksheet. You are going to add the punctuation marks into these sentences. Now, at the end of every sentence, there is a number. That tells you how many punctuation marks are missing in this sentence. Also, any capitalization in this sentence is correct. So if these two things are capitalized, those are correct. Don't go through and change them. So let's do the first one together. Hey, where are you going in such a hurry? Well, we know this is a question, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to put a question mark. Now, to make sure it's really obvious that this is what you did to the sentence, I also want you to highlight it. Now, I don't care what color you highlight it. You can highlight it whatever color you would like to. Just make sure we can read what you put. Okay. So obviously a question mark there, and then there's something here. Those are my only hints. When you guys get done, go ahead and turn this into Canvas. I believe in all of you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.